Hi. First of all, I would like to say thank you for inviting me, and I'm really honored to see the whole Vim community here. Can you hear me? Better now. So I'm really honored to be here and to get to know all of you in the Vim community. So my talk today is about what happened in the last year in the Vim community and in the Vim project after Bram passed away. So first of all, who am I? So I've been active in the Vim community since about 2006. I think my first commit was around Vim 7.0 or 7.1, so it's quite some time already. Back at the time, I started with a lot of bug reports. Later on, I dived into the code, and then I've contributed simple patches and fixes. And later on, I contributed a bit more features like the GN text object, the Control-A in visual mode, and G-Control-A feature, as well as the internal diff support, some regex improvements, and the better encryption support using libsodium. But not only in the Vim core, I was also active in the infrastructure. So I've been helping with moving the homepage around, building the daily app image, and the Win32 installer daily releases. For family and professional reasons, I've become a bit more less active, like a couple of years ago. I had to switch jobs for some reasons, which also means I had to concentrate and reprioritize some work, and also my family took a lot more time. But in August, this all changed, and then I became one of the main maintainers of Vim. So I want to talk and tell you what changed since then. So you probably all remember what happened in August, right? We got this message. It was quite shocking for all of us. We basically lost Bram already a few weeks before. It was pretty quiet on the Vim list. No patches have been contributed, and people already started to wonder what happened with Bram. Where is he? So after we got this news from his family, we had to decide what we're going to do with the project. How is it going to recontinue? And we lost a lot of knowledge. Bram started Vim like 30 years ago. He, of course, has a lot of knowledge on the original VI, of all the features he wanted to have. And he was also the leader, and he basically determined the strategy, where he wanted the project to go, and what he wanted to be included, and what he didn't like. And this also means a lot of knowledge around the Vim project was basically lost. He used to have some test scripts that wasn't included in the repository, and all of this basically got lost, and we had to restructure and find ways to continue with the project. So how did we? So I had to do a few changes. Here you can see back then, like a year and a half ago, if you looked at the Vim homepage, you saw basically 3 maintainers. This was, of course, Bram as the owner. There was me, and there was Ken. I think Ken is over there. So he helped us with the project, contributed quite a few patches, I think especially around Windows support, and also he helped with the Windows installer. And basically we were the core contributors, and there was also Charles, who has not been on the list here, but he has been contributing a lot of runtime script files. So when we had to make a decision to keep on going, and one of the ways is to follow the GitHub diseased user policy, which basically whenever a maintainer disappears is a way to keep on going and get access to a project. Like Bram was the owner, that means only he could make certain decisions. Final decisions like setting up roles and permissions for other maintainers, and we needed to have this power to continue working and invite other maintainers to the project. Unfortunately, using the diseased user policy is not as easy as it sounds, because you need to fill out quite some paperwork, and even if you follow this process, then the account becomes basically deactivated, which wasn't the best thing for us, since Bram's family was able to access his account, and I didn't want them to lose this ability. So what we basically did then was the family basically gave us access rights, changed the permissions, so that I was able to invite other maintainers. One of the other things, I mentioned already, Charles was one of the core maintainers as well, but unfortunately he decided to retire. He has also been contributing to a lot of Vim scripting and Vim plugins for about 25 or even longer years. And he decided he doesn't feel like doing it anymore. So we lost a bit more knowledge on a lot of Vim script tooling. So I decided to invite a few more maintainers. Those were mainly people who have been long-time contributors to Vim. First of all, there's Jägerpan. He has been active within the community and contributing to Vim probably even longer than I did. I remember he has been around on the Vim list when I joined, and he contributed, for example, quick fix list features, and also with the new Vim 9 scripting interface, he was quite active. Then I invited Dominic Pelle, who has been quite involved with the security testing and fixing security issues. Doug Kearns has always been active with helping with runtime file updates, and he has been taking a bit the role from Charles, mainly about the Vim syntax highlighting. And then there were a few more. Glepnir, I hope I pronounce the following names correctly. He has been helping with the insert completion code. Matt N, who has always been contributing a bit of patches around the Windows support. Unfortunately, he's not here today. And Zerzi, who is a core NeoVim contributor, but also contributes quite a lot of code to Vim. And I'm quite surprised how much code and how many pull requests he has been active with and helping us with the project. And then there were a few other team members for other roles and other projects. But it's not only about the source code, right? The whole project, it's not only having access to the source code and adding new features and changing the code. There are also quite a few other resources that need to be managed. Most of it is, or most importantly, it's the Vim homepage. Then getting access to the domains and the emails. Closely related to this is the SSL certificates. Bram used to distribute a lot of files via the FTP server. Then there is, of course, security vulnerability reporting, which needs to be taken care of. Naturally, Bram was also known for his charity work at the ICCF, so we need to find out a way how to handle this. There's the community management around the Vim mailing lists, as well as, of course, other communities like Stack Exchange or Reddit. And unfortunately, most of those hasn't been documented, or at least I didn't know where it was documented. So I had to find out all of this, how this is managed, basically the hard way. So for the Vim homepage, the Vim homepage has been traditionally been hosted by SourceForge until around 2018. In 2018, there was a lot of controversy around SourceForge because they started bundling some kind of adwares with their projects, and there was a bit of controversy in other open source projects if SourceForge is still considered a good or bad. So the Vim homepage moved in 2018 from SourceForge to OSDN, which I believe is some kind of a Japanese branch of SourceForge. And since then, it has been working quite fine. In addition, they had which was quite nice for Vim, a Mercurial mirror, because the source code used to be on Mercurial before we switched to Git. So it was quite nice to have a Mercurial mirror available out of the box here. The Vim homepage has been unchanged for about more than 20 years, more or less. I mean, of course, people have been updating and uploading scripts, and there have been news added to it, but the core code under it hasn't been changed and was still quite old PHP 7 code. It needed a bit of rework. And then about the same time in summer last year, I believe OSDN has been acquired by OS China. Of course, nobody noticed. We only noticed by noticing some errors when accessing the homepage. For example, it used to be quite often to happen that some database errors occurred when accessing the homepage, which basically prevented people to upload new scripts, which was not helpful at all. I remember I checked this one. I logged into the account, but I only could see there were some error messages. But since this was a shared code repository between several projects, I didn't have rights to basically do more than just analyzing and see errors. So everything has to go via tickets. And for us, this meant we had to open tickets with OSDN or OS China. But unfortunately, this meant the ticket support was not very good for at all. We didn't get any results back. They just were lying around open and nobody took care of it. So basically that meant at the same time that we had to restructure the project to also start moving the homepage to a different hoster. So I started looking around, asking around who would be able to provide us with hosting our homepage. And those issues even became more urgent. While it used to be just like once in a while to happen, they happened more frequently, so we had to find a new hoster. Unfortunately, this also meant that we had to upgrade the homepage from PHP 7 to at least PHP 8 support, since PHP 7 was no longer actively supported. So we also had to rewrite a bit of the homepage code. And it also required a bit of coordination between DNS domain admins and the homepage admins, because at one point we basically had to tell them, please switch now the homepage to this new IP address. And of course, by that time, we had to have the database migration happen and the homepage moved over. Fortunately, this was all quite successful, and in about around September, we were able to successfully move the homepage. At the same time, the Mercurial mirror basically just went on my private homepage, which was hg.256bit.org. But just about last week, I had to disable it because of stability and load issues. So for now, we are not with an active or current Mercurial mirror. But I have some plans to maybe re-enable this later on. The whole hosting is currently sponsored by Wavestack, which is some kind of an open source cloud hoster in Germany, and it's been maintained by Mark Schöchlin, which is one of my former colleagues from university. Since then, I think it's been running quite stable. No issues so far. Nobody complained anymore. So I think this was quite successful. But it's not only about the homepage, right? There are other resources we need to take care of. Most of all, there were various domains related to Vim, and not one central resource was basically managing them. We had the main one, vim.org, which was managed by somebody else, so it wasn't held by Bram itself. So we have always to involve other people. And I think Bram also registered a few domains like vim8.org, vim9.org, vimscripts.org or something like that. Most of them which are not really in active use, which is okay, but maybe in the future we may need or reuse some of those domain names. SSL certificates is quite important. Happily or luckily, this was already set up correctly using Let's Encrypt to auto update those certificates every 90 days. So no worries and no issues there. That was quite fine. FTP server has been traditionally provided by the Dutch Unix user group. However, this was fine like in the 90s and maybe early 2000s. Nowadays, I think people typically just download everything from GitHub or from a homepage. So those people were a bit worried to give me access, and it's fine basically, because we then decided to retire the whole FTP server, and if a download needs to be done, it can be done via the Vim homepage. And since I announced this one that the server was retired, I think I did never hear any bad complaints for accessing anything from the Vim FTP server. So that was as well fine. There's also email accounts, of course. Quite a few help pages still mentioned, like bram@vim.org or maintainer@vim.org or bugs@vim.org. And until recently, those mails were still forwarded to Bram's email address. I think just 2 weeks ago or so, I changed those. For now, they have been forwarded to my address. I can tell most of it were just spam mails, so I guess it's fine. And if something urgent would have happened, I think Bram's family would have told me and would have contacted me anyhow. But for now, it's going to my personal email address. In the future, we may need to change this one just to make sure that the whole project gets the mails here. Naturally, Vim was also quite closely related to the ICCF, since Bram was the founder of this charity and wanted to take care of poor children in Uganda. There was quite a close relationship between those two projects. Mostly because of if you offered or if you donated to the ICCF, you would also be eligible to start with voting for features, and this needs also to be handled. Also, there were quite a few questions from users coming who have been donating to the ICCF and just asking me what happened to my donations. Is it still everything received? So I had to take care of this one as well. So I was working a bit with the ICCF people to make sure that all donations were correctly transferred to them for donation and of their charity. And finally, was a question of sponsorship for maintainers. Currently, all maintainers are working for free. We don't have any sponsorship, and it's been kind of a delicate issue because we don't, or at least I don't want to take any budget or funding away from ICCF. Traditionally, all money that has been raised by Vim has always been donated to the ICCF, and I don't want to change this. So I'm not planning for any sponsorship, at least in the near future. This may change depending on how the project works and how maintainers require it, but for now there is no sponsorship planned for any maintainers. And in addition, the community has always been or has been managed by Google Groups. I think there was a transition period like 15 years ago or something where it moved from Yahoo Groups to Google Groups. Unfortunately, Google Groups is kind of not very supportive to the project. So every now and then, a mail from me sent to the Vim dev mailing list gets blocked, which is fine. But I think in like half a year ago, they started to basically block the whole Vim dev Google Groups completely, because apparently they noticed some bad behavior over there. And I don't know why, because you're only allowed to send mails over to the list after first approval of the first messages. I've been going through the list of new mails from new participants of the list and unblocking or blocking spam mails and unblocking user requests. So I don't know what exactly was the reason there, but of course this caused a bit of a pain for us, and I'm not sure how to handle this in the future. It has been suggested to go back to self-hosting, and maybe we will need to move the mailing list away from Google and just have it self-hosted on our Vim domain. Maybe this is something to consider in the future. Currently it's looking quite stable, but who knows what the future brings. And the big disadvantage here would be that everybody would have to rejoin and resubscribe to the lists, which is not very nice. Security reporting is always a big and important part of an open source project. So about a couple of years ago, people started reporting security issues at Hunter. And Hunter was kind of a website where you could responsibly disclosure some issues. The owners of the project would have been noticed. They could get in contact with the reporter, they could discuss changes, and it has some kind of gamification effects on it so that you gain reputational points if you fix an issue or if you report successfully issues. There were quite a few lists of open issues that haven't been taken care since Bram wasn't active anymore. So I went through the list, and then around a year ago, Hunter was basically acquired by some other company, and they basically just wanted to concentrate on AI and only on AI. So open source vulnerability reporting was basically shut down almost immediately. So I had to find a different solution for this one. What I settled on was using the GitHub Security Advisory, which is quite of a nice feature. You can directly go on the Vim homepage, select GitHub Security tab, and then you can see all the lists of active advisories, and for maintainers there's a list of not yet published advisories that you need to take care of. You can even fork and have a private repository to work on those issues, and then at one point then hopefully merge it back. The one thing that is not so nice about this private security fork is basically whenever you push a change to it, our whole CI testing suite is not run, which is kind of ridiculous, because then I can just also run it on my local computer and then just push it to my to the main source code. And that's actually what happened. I think a few weeks ago I pushed a patch which there was a trivial error in it, and it broke quite badly for a lot of people. So I had to change it back because I didn't notice and the CI infrastructure wasn't working. So basically this means I cannot really test a change, or I have to trust and run it on my own computer, but it doesn't really help that much. And in addition, I've also set up a private security mailing list, which doesn't require any subscription, so anybody can send to it. Of course, there's also quite a bit of spam, but it's fine. It's not too much, and all messages are forwarded to all of the maintainers, so anybody gets a notification and can act accordingly. And once I've done a few changes and patches to the source codes that are security relevant, I started tagging those just to make it more publicly available that that a particular patch is fixing an issue. So I started adding basically the security tag in the commit line, so it's easily clear that this particular patch fixes some issues that has been reported before. Using GitHub Security Advisory also helps with requesting CVEs, so I don't have to research and know how to do this. It's quite easy. You can easily select the severity of a CVE, so this works also quite nice. And whenever I merge such a patch or such a change into the repository, I will also announce it in a few places, like the OS security list, which is quite well known for publicly discussing security issues of open source projects, as well as I notify quite a few of the distribution maintainers so that they are aware that they should update Vim to the latest version, or at least include this particular patch. For the ICCF, of course, it was closely related to Bram. I'm still in contact with some people from the ICCF. It's still active, so they still take donations. And luckily, quite a few Vim users started donating after Bram's passing away. So in the last year, we made about more than 90,000 euros of donations for the children in Africa. There's still a PayPal link active on the Vim homepage. I think it's currently still linked to Bram's account, but it's working quite fine, so you don't need to be worried about it. Bram's family takes care of it and is taking care that the money is then transferred to the ICCF. So far I haven't received any complaints about it. Naturally, there were quite a few users a bit worried when they saw that it's going via Bram's account, but everything so far is working fine. However, also the ICCF starts to reorganize and restructure themselves to work better in the future. So they plan to partner with the Kumasha charity, but from my side, or from Vim's side of it, I would say we are still supporting and continue to support the ICCF and the people in Uganda. It has always been quite an important part of the whole project to Bram, and I'm not planning to make any changes here. I think Vim is well known for his charity work on the ICCF, and I don't want to change this. I want to continue donating for those people. I'm luckily enough that I earn enough money with my professional job, so I don't need any sponsorship for working on Vim. So from my side of it, all money that is donated and will be donated in the future to Vim can luckily go directly to the ICCF, and I'm quite happy with this approach. However, there was one thing we need to change. This is basically the voting feature. Traditionally, when users registered at the Vim.org page, they could link their account when donating to the ICCF, and then one of the advantages for a user to donate to the ICCF was that they got the voting feature enabled, which there was a quite long list of different features, and you could basically decide what would you like to get better support on it. However, I never really understood the need for this voting feature, because we already have a to-do list in the help documents, we have the issue tracker in GitHub, and there was the voting list, and it was never really clear which one of those three sources is the main source where you're starting looking at in items, or how you prioritize between all those three things. So it never really made sense to me to have the voting list anyhow. So I decided to basically shut it down. It was not easy anyhow to link back the users to their donations. I'm not sure how Bram did it in the past. The other people from the ICCF weren't able to tell me this one. And as I said, I didn't feel like the voting feature was that useful anyhow. So we basically just decided to stop it. I think most of those new enhancement requests and issues still happened on GitHub and a bit also on the to-do list. So I think it's fine if we stop using the voting feature here. So coming back to the Vim project and the source code repository. In GitHub you have this quite little stats which you can have a look at it. What you can see is basically that the development did not stop, which is of course a good thing, right? There's one thing you can see. You cannot see my mouse. Okay, anyhow, there's one thing around between 2023 and 2024, there's a big drop in the number of commits that have been committed to the repository, which is, of course, was a period when Bram was suddenly disappearing and no longer active. And then there's a big spike quite after it. So this was basically when we gained access to the repository and were able to push changes to it again. So when Bram, because of his health conditions, was no longer able to push anything to GitHub, quite a few pull requests accumulated on GitHub. So I started going through those and importing them. So that's why you see quite a huge steep in new commits. Note that those are just the number of commits. It's not just the size of the commits. So it's just how many commits have been added to the repository over time here. So as you can see, development did not really stop. It's still quite active. There are a lot of activity going on GitHub. Like every day, I have a few issues to take care of. I have a few pull requests to review before I merge it down. So there is quite a bit of activity going on. Interestingly, on the Vim mailing list, there seems to be a lot less activity, but maybe that's just the way people are working today, and they are no longer using mailing lists that much. And people are nowadays going to GitHub directly or discussing directly on Stack Exchange or Reddit, which is fine. It's just something that I noticed, that mailing list is not so active anymore. So we tried to finish up the 9.1 release, and around January we were able to release Vim 9.1, which basically concluded the Vim 9 class support, which was the main feature Bram was working on, and we wanted to have it finished before we do a 9.1 release. So once this was finished, I released 9.1, and it was of course dedicated to Bram. But there have been quite a other few improvements as well. So virtual text improvements have been included. Smooth scrolling support has been going on and has been improved by a few contributors, as well as Open VMS support to enable Vim to successfully run on the VMS architecture. And of course, as always, a lot of bug fixes, a lot of runtime file updates, and a few security fixes have been included. If you want to see more, here's the homepage, and you can also have a look into the documentation and see what patches are included and what changes have been added here. So after the Vim 9.1 release, I started to include a bit more potential controversial changes. So XCG support was one of it. The community has been wishing for it for at least, I think, maybe 10 years. So this issue has been open for quite a few years, and I think it was a good change to add after 9.1 has been released. So now finally we are no longer littering your home directory. In addition, VLAN support was a bit lacking, so we finally merged some VLAN support. I'm not 100% sure if it's working 100%ly or not. There have been some complaints, mainly about clipboard support, but then clipboard works slightly different compared to the X11 architecture, so I'm not 100% sure it's actually a bug or if there's some missing functionality here or not. A few plugins have been included. Of course, again, many small improvements have been done. Bug fixes, Vim script updates as usual, potential security fixes. All what has been changed you can see here in the help tag, help Vim -9.2, which basically lists all the changes, additions, and improvements, which will finally lead to a 9.2 release whenever this will happen. So when I was going through some of those changes and pull requests, I kind of started to create my own policy here before I merge something into the Vim repository. So first of all, it's very important to have changes tested. We want to make sure that if we add new features, if we add bug fixes, etc., we need to make sure that those features are tested well, so that in the future, if we make other changes, those features don't regress. We want to make sure that it keeps on working. So it's very important to have those tests included and run via our CI testing suite whenever a commit has been pushed to the repository. It's also important to have good documentation, especially also of our internal processes. Like what I've said before, I started creating an internal repository which basically lists all the important stakeholders, all the people that need to be involved for certain things, how I create those patches, how I send out those changes to the mailing list, etc. It's at least we don't want to make sure that this is lost. I just want to ensure that in the future, if anything happens to me, you never know, right? I could disappear for some reason. So I just want to make sure that whoever takes care of it after me is still able to at least follow what I've been doing and then continue working on it. Or if they don't want to, that's also fine, but they have at least documented how I have been working with the code. Then, of course, Vim has been notoriously known for not breaking backwards compatibility, and this is also still kind of important to me. I don't want to change make backwards incompatible changes, so I'm quite hesitant to merge anything that would potentially cause issues here for long users. Documentation I already talked about, and one of the other things is consistency. And it's actually it's quite a hard thing to keep in mind. You get a few issues, you get pull requests, you get patches, etc. But you need to make sure you have that you have the whole picture of the whole project, how it looks like, and how you want it to work. And to make sure that it's consistent to how users expect certain features to work. It's hard to make the decisions around this one. But I'm trying to at least strive for consistency here. However, currently I would say Vim is more or less in maintenance mode. I don't think any of the maintainers is able to perform full-time work on Vim. Or push for bigger features. I know in the NeoVim community there have been quite some new changes, including tree-sitter support and all of this, which has also been wished for Vim. But this is quite a tremendous effort, and I'm not yet sure we can achieve it, at least not in the near term. So most of the changes that have been merged is relatively self-contained small feature sets, which can be easily tested, but and don't have that much impact on other parts of the code. So if you're looking for big new features in the future, we do depend on community to help us with this one. Help us testing it, help us documenting, help us translating, etc., bug fixing, all those kinds of things are quite essential for the Vim project to be successful in the future as well. So what else can be improved? The Vim homepage has been in its current state for about more than 20 years. Here you can see a screenshot of what it looked like in 2001, which is quite interesting. Looks like in the 90s. But also the current Vim homepage is shown its age. It's well known. It has a well-known design. People know it directly when they see it, but I can imagine that for new users it kind of looks scary. It doesn't look modern, it doesn't look like any fresh design, etc. So I started with some students to redesign the homepage, and they have been showing me some screenshots, but unfortunately the whole project didn't, at least not yet, work out too well for us. So it was not that successful at the first attempt. Maybe later on we will do another attempt to update and improve the homepage, but of course we need to be a bit careful. I mentioned before, consistency is important, and I don't want to scare away long-time Vim users who are used to the existing homepage. I also want to make sure that new contributors are welcome and want to make sure that the community is healthy. Luckily, this conference basically shows we have a healthy community here, which is quite nice. But I want to make sure that contributors have an easy way to contribute code. We have some kind of for example, we have some kind of a strange code formatting of the source code. It's basically been Bram's style of working, which is okay, but it doesn't help new users to get used to this one. So we started importing some kind of automatic code formatting into the Vim project. So I may slightly change the style of the existing code in the future to make sure that new contributors have it a bit easier to provide patches and contribute to a consistent style here as well. And then I also need to find out a bit more about how the community works with Vim. I've been thinking about to do some kind of a user survey, just to know, for the Vim project, to know what is important to the community. Is it more like feature stability? Do they want to become an IDE, integrated IDE? I think that's basically the way NeoVim does. So we already have some kind of a distribution that provides the integrated IDE features already. But of course, we are no longer just an editor, right? We are having a lot of features that are no longer just editor features. How can we make sure that Vim9 script is successful and has been used? I'm starting to see a lot of messages from people who kind of enjoy using the new Vim scripting engine, which is nice and great. and how can we make sure that the community stays active and healthy. But of course also a user survey could help us. What should we concentrate on in the future? Is it more big features? Is it more stability features? Is it more bug-for-bug compatibility with the old traditional VI? That's something where I am not sure yet where to steer the whole project. For developers, I also want to make sure that it's important to adhere to a certain style. First of all, we are still using C. C is also kind of an old programming language, but of course it's not a solution to refactor everything into Rust or whatever. It's just kind of modern programming language right now. So for now, it's important to use a defensive and safe C style to ensure that we are not introducing any issues, especially security-relevant issues. So we want to make sure we are using safe C functions. We want to make sure that the coverage is high. That's why I already mentioned I want to have all changes tested in the test suite and in the CI. But also Caverity, which is a static code analyzer, which is run every day, and it notifies of any changes and issues, potential issues that could occur, that we keep Caverity happy. Also, there are a few parts of the codes which are quite long and lengthy and complex and hard to understand. So, if possible, we will try to refactor those into more manageable units, just to make sure that it's more easily handleable, the code. And finally, there are a few external interfaces. Vim has quite a few external interfaces: Python, Perl, Lua, TCL, MC Scheme, Python 2 and 3. And I've been wondering what's actually happening with at least the older ones or the ones that don't seem actually usage here. So, for example, Python 2, I'm not sure if this actually still makes sense. I think Python 2 is no longer actively maintained. I think the Python community also largely moved on and migrated to Python 3. So that would mean that Python 2 could at least be retired at some point in the future. For TCL, I'm certainly not aware of any plugin using it. So this could also be a good candidate for retiring. And MC Scheme, I think the latest version of the language does no longer build with Vim anyhow. And the older version of the language, I'm not sure if anybody still uses it. So those are potential future interfaces that I may need to retire, because at the end it's still some kind of maintenance burden. We need to keep it up and running, and we need to make sure that it still compiles. We need to, if we make changes to other parts in the code, we would need to fix those in the interfaces as well. And it's just a lot of work, which potentially nobody actually uses, and also nobody benefits from. What else can be improved? Naturally, the GUI improvement would be nice to have a GTK 4 version. I think it's been already available, GTK 4, but we don't have anybody actively contributing or really familiar with the GTK code. So this is something would be nice to have to improve the UI feature of Vim. Then also terminals do add new features, new enhanced features. So it might be interesting to explore those and see what else can we improve here. And tree sitter, of course, is a big one wished for by the community, but it's also a bit controversial. There are some controversial opinions out there, so it's not quite clear yet. But again, as I mentioned before, I don't see it coming in the near time, at least. And then the spelling code, it hasn't been touched for, I think, for a few years, I believe, since version 7 or something. So there are some features, I think, in spelling, in the dictionaries of the files which Vim doesn't use it. So it there may be some enhancements that we should integrate maybe in the future. So those are some codes or some points where I could think in the future would need some work. If you want to get if you want to get contribute to Vim and the project, those would be nice starting points, but they may be quite complex. So it's start small. If you ever want to change and add new and contribute to Vim, I always recommend starting small, getting familiar with the code base, and then you can work on further improvements and make bigger changes as well. So what have I learned? So it's maintaining Vim is hard, and it's a full-time job. But it's not only about writing code. It's also about managing the community. It's about managing expectations, and it's about driving the project. And the most important point here, I think, is keeping the community healthy. Listening to the community, listening what they want, listening to their requests, fixing bugs that come up, and making sure that we can keep up and do what the community basically wants. It's an open source project. That means community can contribute and should contribute and also help us steer the project into the future. So coming to the end, I'd like to thank everybody who contributed to Vim, who have been reporting bugs, translated files, helped with the documentation, helped with runtime files updates, helped with new file type plugins, whatever. Anything, if you have ever been reported an issue to Vim, thank you for that one. Thank you for making Vim very successful. It's a community effort, and everybody contributes to it. So this is very much appreciated by us from the Vim project. If you enjoy Vim, finally, let me emphasize this. If you enjoy Vim, please consider donating to the ICCF, because there are people out there in the world who really cannot work on Vim, cannot use it, but they would like to have a good chance to start their life. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, but we have 14 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's do Q&A.
Q&A, yeah, that's fine, yeah.
Are there any questions? Anybody there? Yep.
I just wanted to know your thoughts about NeoVim and how it has come out, and like it is a bit more popular. I mean, not in terms of user numbers, I would say, but like in the zeitgeist, more people are like going towards NeoVim. What are your thoughts on it overall?
Pardon, sorry, I didn't.
What are your thoughts on like NeoVim and like other distros coming up?
Oh, well, NeoVim is quite nice. It's been gaining traction. People are more and more switching over to NeoVim. I think it seems to be more active in the developer community. For example, in my professional life, I need to jump on a lot of Unix boxes and do some configuration changes. That is something where I definitely don't see NeoVim basically being used. So there are quite a few use cases where Vim is still being strong. It's still being the editor on Unix or on the POSIX systems for a reason. But I still, of course, enjoy what NeoVim has been doing. I also enjoy how they are trying to things out. They don't have any fear of dropping features, switching to a different implementation, even if it causes that bugs are introduced into the code base. But they are actively working on it and fixing it. So it's quite nice. And I think Vim and NeoVim can work quite nicely together. It's not like one takes away the users from the others. I think we can both contribute, we can both live from each other, we can benefit from each other. I think NeoVim still mainly has a lot of runtime files together with Vim. So that is quite nice, and I think we should also strive for, in the future, to keep at least some kind of a compatibility with coming features and runtime files. There's some feature set which is kind of quite disparate, but I if possible, we should try to avoid this in the future and make sure that NeoVim and Vim can live together quite nicely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Question can be also in Japanese because he can use the receiver. I think he also understands German, so he can also ask in German too.
Yeah, I take German questions.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chris, for the great work. I've got a simple question, because I'm quite the old guy, as you can see me. And I don't have a GitHub account, but I use vim.org to
Yes.
upload my scripts.
That's fine.
Yeah, but I'm also the author of the object science language. I'm the author. And my file, my tarball is quite big. I cannot upload all the things to the vim.org. I just want to know the size limit for the tarball, for the upload file.
Oh, I don't know out of the head of my right now. I would need to check it up.
Okay.
Maybe we can take it offline.
Okay, yeah.
We can connect together. Or maybe you just also write me just a quick message so we don't forget it, and then I can have a look at it if there's any limit. How big are your files?
Okay.
How big are your files you're using?
I think it's more than 20 meg.
Okay. Yeah.
Not that big. Yeah.
Okay, which is for an upload, it might be just 10 megs, but I'm just guessing here right now.
All right. Okay.
But we discuss later on. We can discuss later on and follow up.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Hi, so thank you for your talk. So I have one question. I'm a new Vim user and I don't use Vim so much, but I heard Vim is great and sometimes I use Vim, but how to learn to contribute to Vim? Because I heard the implementation of Vim is a little bit hard because it's C language and it's a little bit different from the usual C implementation. I don't know if that's wrong, please correct me. But yeah, so is there any advice to start contributing to Vim? Please give us advice.
So, thank you for the question. It's an important one. It depends on what you want to contribute, right? You can start easy. As I said before, any contribution is appreciated. Starting with documentation, starting with translation, starting with bug fixes. If you want to get your feet wet into the code itself, it depends if you're actually trying to fix something in the runtime files, which is mainly legacy Vim script. And maybe a bit of new Vim 9 script. If you want to go into the core features, you would have to start using C. We are not using Lua. I think NeoVim community is using a bit more Lua, or quite a few bit more Lua than we are. So if you are a Lua developer, I don't think we can do much for you, but if you're just doing some C or programming or Vim script, I think should be fairly easy to grasp and contribute there as well.
Yeah, we have 9 minutes. 日本語で質問しても大丈夫です。
Hi, it's very nice to talk to you in person. I've talked to you a lot on GitHub. I guess my main question is the one big difference between NeoVim and Vim historically has been how the team and the decision-making process works. So currently, we have added a lot of people to the Vim organization, but I've noticed that a lot of the Vim pull requests are mostly only merged by you. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just trying to understand how the process you plan for the process to work. So would you kind of consider that to be, I guess you're the new benevolent dictator for life?
No,
which is not a
No.
It's not a negative thing.
Don't you ever tell me the benevolent dictator. No, I'm not.
Yes, I'm just kind of curious about more thoughts on how you plan for the Vim, I guess like the process, the organization would work.
Yes, so, yes, you're right, we added quite a few maintainers, and yes, I am the one who actually merges changes into the Vim source repository. Right now, I think this is mostly because every change needs to increment the version number. So if, for example, Ken merges something in and I don't notice and I merge something in, we would basically have some conflicts. So that's one of the reasons incrementing the version numbers successfully. Personally, I don't have anything about the other maintainers importing or merging some changes in. I think I mentioned it before. I was, at least internally, in our internal maintainers list, I was during vacation. I handed over main maintainership over to Jägerpan, and I basically told them, if there's anything going on while I'm away, please don't feel welcome to merge and changes as you feel is required for Vim. So it's not so much about me making decisions here. And actually, I don't feel very comfortable in making the hard leadership decisions or something like that. I want to emphasize it's a community project. I'm considering opinions of the community before I make decisions. I'm not the one who says we have to do it like this way or we have to do it like that way. It just happens that I think the other maintainers currently don't want to merge anything and wait for me to merge it, which is fine. But again, let me emphasize, anybody who's on the maintainer list is welcome to merge as they see it fits into the Vim core.
Thank you.
Over there. Over there.
Oh. Thank you. I mostly work in just English, and I'm just surprised about how many people there are in the Japanese community too. Do you often work across the language barrier, and do you have any advice on crossing that barrier? Because even in English by itself, it's pretty hard to communicate sometimes.
Sorry.
Do you work with across the language barrier? Because I see there's a lot of Japanese in the community, and I also assume there's many languages in Europe. Mm-hmm. How do you work across the language barrier?
Yeah, that's hard. I guess since it's an international open source project, English is the main language to talk to each other. Unfortunately, I cannot speak Japanese, even though I'm invited here. I would like to talk to Ken in Japanese, but I can't. So the only way to communicate across internationally across different maintainers is to make sure to use English. I think it's nowadays maybe getting a bit easier with using ChatGPT or some translating tools, etc. But of course, sometimes we get issues from people speaking no good English, and it's hard to understand what is actually required, which is a bit of an issue, yes. But that's not much I can change, unfortunately.
Thank you.
他はおりませんか？大丈夫です。結構緊張してるんですけど、私は Vim や NeoVim のコミュニティに参加してまだ1年も満たない、初心者ビギナーなんですけれども、こうやってエンジニアとしても5年目と非常に短い期間なんですが、こういう初心者ビギナー新しい方々がこういう巨大なコミュニティ、オープンソースに対してどのような働きをしてほしいか、だったりどういう行動をとってほしいか、どう思われてますかっていうのをお聞きしたいんですが。
And you want to contribute to Vim, or is it just being active in the Vim community, in the wider Vim community?
初めはアクティブに参加する、どちらに行くかはまだわからないんですが、自分のような初心者がこういうコミュニティに参加したときに、何をするとコミュニティの中の人たちは嬉しいのかとか役に立つのか、こういうことをしてほしいみたいな望みってありますか、初心者やビギナーに対して。
Okay, understood. So you have a great Japanese community here already, I think. So I would recommend you to connect with the Japanese community. They can probably also help you with what they have been working on. I guess in your case, very much important is having localized help files so that you can really make use of the existing documentation, learn and study how to use Vim efficiently. Go to community meetings, see how other people are working with Vim, what kind of plugins are they using, if at all, or if they are more like a minimal users who are just using the bare features, etc. If you want to become then more active into the wider Vim project, if you notice something, for example, you notice a bug, start with bug reportings. That's always easy. When you see a bug fixed, maybe check the source code. What exactly has been changed there to try to understand why it has been changed, what has been changed, and making sure that this works. Test out the change. Maybe there are other similar cases which haven't been patched or which haven't been fixed yet. So try to verify that the patch actually works. This is always good. Adding new tests. There are quite a few runtime files which are not yet tested. Is also something as a beginner you can quite easily contribute to. If you get an understanding of how the testing feature works, which is just largely legacy Vim script, it should be easily enough to contribute new tests there. And later on, once you're a bit more familiar with the source code, try to dive into the source code, see if you notice anything, and then propose patches via the pull request or send patches directly.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Chris.
Sure, thanks.